Hello, everyone. For our last aspect of our food storage and waste reduction project, I will be focusing on utilizing and reusing leftover foods. This can be maybe something you cooked earlier in the week or something that you took home from a restaurant. Just common things that often are overlooked and underutilized as far as reusing and not wasting your leftover food. So the four main things I'm going to be focusing on is rice, potatoes, cooked steak, and salad greens. Um, I'm going to be focusing on both dressed salad greens and undressed salad greens. So let's get into it. Did you know that 17% of meals consumed at restaurants go unfinished? If you think about it in the grand scheme of things, that is a whole lot of food that doesn't need to be wasted. Um, I think if you have leftover food and you can repurpose it into something afterwards, it's always worth taking home and getting an extra meal out of what you paid for. To start, we're going to look at repurposing our rice. So, old rice is often drier, and this is due to a process called retrogradation, which allows for the starch molecules to recrystallize in this rice. So that's why when you have day-old rice, oftentimes it's almost chunky. Um, this is perfect for making fried rice. That is one of the number one things that you can do with leftover rice, as there is less starch content. It doesn't become sticky when reheated. Oftentimes, when you make fried rice with fresh rice, it'll kind of glob together, and this won't happen. And so it'll stay as individualized grains and is perfect when you add in additional ingredients like vegetables or sauces. It'll really soak it up, but it won't get stuck together. Similar to pan frying, because the starch content is so low, baking it will also offer a good form of reheating and it won't make it into like globby. Um, Things like stuffed peppers are really great. Again, adding additional ingredients and baking it in its own pepper is a really good way of using this old rice. And then fully rehydrating it by adding your old rice to liquid forward dishes like soups or stews or chowders could be really good ways to thicken up dishes. The rice will soak up a lot of the flavor, um, and it's super delicious if you have some leftover rice to add it to a soup. It gives it a nice new texture. I think rehydrating rice is also very versatile. You can use it to make dessert dishes like rice puddings. Again, if you put it in more of a milky substance, it will kind of thicken it up and absorb that liquid. But yeah, that's rice. Rice can grow bacteria very easily. Um, and so making sure you store it properly, letting it come to room temperature and then refrigerating it, um, and not letting it sit out very long in room temperature or non-refrigerated temperatures, are ways to prevent this food poisoning from happening. For repurposing potatoes, I think often people are turned off by a soggy potato and think, hey, I should just throw them away. They're soggy. But there really are so many things you can do. I think reheating a potato obviously will not be as good as the original fry or breakfast potato or steak fry that you had before, but things like an air fryer or cooking in an oven can revive a fry to a pretty good texture and crisp. Aside from reheating, things like breakfast hashes and frittatas by mixing either with priorly cooked eggs or mixing with your eggs before you cook, um, with additional vegetables or on a pan will kind of utilize the not soggy texture, but not crispy texture. Um, if you're unable to get your fries really back to the crispy state they're at before, dishes like poutine that kind of utilize that soggy fry texture and flavor, I would say, are great. You can top your fries with gravy and cheese curds, and you'll really make a delicious Canadian classic. Poutine's so fun. For repurposing red meat, one of the big things that happens with reheating cooked steak is overcooking your steak. The overcooking of steak often makes for kind of a gross or just super chewy texture. And there's ways to prevent that. I think cooking it at a low heat or slicing your meat very thin to lower reheating time, all are ways that, you can spend less time having the steak on heat, which will obviously then prevent overcooking. Using already warm surfaces like a quesadilla by putting like a colder piece of steak thinly sliced on warm cheese will warm it and will not overcook it. Similar to tacos, if you then open up that quesadilla, quote unquote, and fill it with taco ingredients. Those are good ways to warm but not overcook. Um, Mixing the meat with already hot caramelized onions for a Philly cheesesteak. This is a super quick way to kind of recreate it, or reuse your meat and make a new dish. Um, Oftentimes with thin meat in a hot pan, you can get a warm piece of meat quickly and not overcook it. And then also, I think enjoying um, leftover steak or red meats cold. You can put them in a salad or again, slice thinly and put on a sandwich to use as sort of a cold cut. It's a really good way of reusing your steak. Again, just another reminder, the goal here is to not overcook the steak. Um, it can have a pretty dry and tough bite, and also it depletes the nutrient and flavor content of your steak. So try not to do that. Lastly, repurposing leftover salad greens. This is something that you want to use a little bit quicker than the other ones, I think. I think salad greens will often wilt faster than like from when you take them from the leftover from the store. Um, but yeah, to start with a dressed salad green, perhaps you put some dressing on it in the restaurant or it came dressed. Can always saute your vegetables. The dressing often adds great additional flavor, especially when cooked on a pan. Um, and often the flavorful veggies can be good topping on a grain bowl, put on pasta on the side of a protein. Maybe you're reheating your steak from last night and you also had salad and it's a little soggy, so you want to reheat it. That'll go well with your reheated steak. Or always good mixed in with eggs. For undressed salad greens, I think this goes without saying, but you could obviously use them for greens in a sandwich, greens in a wrap, and then something that is a fun way to kind of change up your smoothie recipe, add extra nutrients, and you know, put in a new ingredient is to add your greens to smoothies. Things like spinach and kale are really good additions and super nutrient dense and kind of have a lower profile flavor when put into a berry smoothie or something with fruit. You can't really taste it. So it's a really good way to kind of get your greens in, especially in something sweet. But that is everything I have for this part of our presentation. Check out the deliverable handouts, for more information on each of these ingredients, and what you can do for repurposing the leftovers of them. Thanks.